I'm Daniel, the past life regressionist, and it's time to begin.
Lift off and the clock has started.
3, 2, 1. This is Timeless Spirituality. Enjoy Eternity Time.
Hey everyone, welcome back for part 2. So with that, make sure you go and check out part 1 if you haven't listened to it. Yeah, I'm excited to jump right in. I loved this episode. I had so much fun with this interview, and I would love to have AJ and Delaney on again. And I'm just gonna shut up now because I want you guys to get into it. So yeah, with all of that said, if you would like to book a regression with me to discover who and where you have been throughout time, you can go ahead and book through my website, thepastliferegressionist.com. And now it's time to begin. I'm not ready to discount what you were also saying, though, about the devil component. I think it would be foolish of me to completely write that off and just say, oh, there's no way. It's pure. Free will's not a thing. Right?
Yeah.
I think that would be so stupid of me to discount it. So I just wonder, where can those influences be showing themselves? And it's like, I think a lot of things that are fear-based may be, and this is where it's like, I'm not someone who fully signs on the idea of the devil. Like, I don't look at things like, say, it's the devil's influence, it's this and that. Again, but I'm not someone who's going to write it off because I can't see it. And just because I can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just because I don't operate in that way doesn't mean that it's not a thing. It could just mean that I'm being ignorant. And I look at the system of astrology. This is where I also want to be very careful with my terminology here, because I know the listeners of the show, and that they are on board with a lot of these things. And so I want to toe the line very carefully. And you had mentioned about the prediction component and using it as a tool to see, oh, well, this is what's to come. And I want to make it very clear right now that with what I'm about to say, this is for the listeners. I am not insinuating that the devil is involved. I just want to make that clear. You guys extrapolate whatever you want from it, but I am not saying that that's the case. I'm just saying it could be. That's all I'm saying. I look at a lot of the people who use astrology, at least in the social media sphere, and they use the predictions as a tool to fearmonger and to instill that fear of like, oh, this is what, bad things are around the corner. Because I think that fear sells. And I don't know if they're necessarily doing that on purpose or aware, or this is just what they actually believe. But I see that as a perversion of the tool. It's not to say that these things are not going to happen. It's kind of like when I see something coming up in a chart, because I do use that as a tool. It's the upcoming transits that you use to make predictions. I think it's foolish to make any concrete prediction, because how can anyone truly know that? Of course, there are also people who are much better at astrology than I am and who, could probably more accurately predict those things. But there are those aspects that you can see, those geometric configurations that are more restricted. And so you can see it's a time that's coming up that could be difficult. And when I see something like that, I choose my words wisely. And I usually word it in a way of, you have an opportunity for growth here in this respect. And I think that if you look at it through that lens, that when you're facing something difficult, it's how do you grow as a person? How do you make the most out of that situation without being caught in this space of fear and letting, we can quote Drive here, how much I let the fear take the wheel and steer. And just whatever tomorrow brings, I'll be there, and approach it in that way and live life to the fullest. And I wonder if that could have been, let's just say, even though this is what I believe, something that I talk about a lot on the podcast, there's a difference between belief and fact and knowing. And being clear about beliefs is important. I believe in the system of astrology. I don't know it to be true. Could be just some construct that us dumb humans came up with to make sense of our lives and apply meaning to it. And it means nothing, or it could mean something. But my belief is that it was a tool of God and it was given to us to somehow latch onto. Just how maybe the first person who designed the first aqueduct, maybe that was something that came directly from God or an angel or something providing them with those blueprints or schematics. Or maybe it was just someone who came up with the idea of, oh, look at this thing called gravity that we don't quite understand yet. Since Newton came, a lot later, and they saw a way to transport that water based off of anything that God provided on the earth. The tools that still weren't crafted yet, but the materials were in play. And it's, here, my children, I give this to you to figure out. But then there's always that one jerk that could come along and say, well, I'm going to corral all these resources and I'm going to control it. So these people will have to bow to me. Seeing the potential for that perversion. So where is that middle ground? Because still, like, another thing with astrology is it's theorized that you can see past lives in astrology, that based off of placements.
Oh yeah, I want to talk about that. She has something I want to bring up on that subject in a minute.
That you can see the patterns of the past and what you're here to work on. And AJ, I full-heartedly agree with you when it comes to the victim mentality and making excuses and saying, well, this is just the way it is. I was a jerk because I'm a Taurus or I'm a Pisces. Also, by the way, Pisces, it's the end of the zodiac, so it's about that completion and bringing everything together. Just saying.
All right.
So yeah, little thing, but I agree with what you were saying, and I wonder if it's the free will or if it's that influence of, do I dare even say, the devil? Kind of putting something out there, and not to scare everyone, but I think it's important to take all these things into consideration. If you want to write it off right now, that's totally your choice. But still, to find that truth, I think it's important to have these conversations.
Right.
So what if it's the devil kind of sneaking in there and whispering in your ear and saying, you did that because you're a Taurus.
Yeah.
That's why you did it. You don't need to take personal accountability. Or however the devil sounds.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Thank you. So, and what if it's God on the other shoulder, or an angel on the other shoulder that's saying, no, take accountability, learn from this. With regards to the past lives component and seeing those placements of the past, I think it's that totality of, how do you move forward? How do you learn from your shortcomings? And how do you also play to the strengths? Because that's the thing, is when you look at a chart, I believe it's fully up to the individual to say, what's my takeaway going to be from this? Am I going to think I am God's gift to the world because, look, I got the best chart in the world? Or is it just, my life is going to suck because I have these difficult angles? Just to kind of top that off, there's this thing called chart envy. And that's with people who are familiar with astrology, when they look at a chart and say, oh, I'd like to have that chart because it's easy. I get chart envy from difficult charts because I look at that chart and I say, I think you have the opportunity to accomplish 10 lives worth of growth right now because of all these obstacles you have to face. But then I think it comes down to that person at the end of the day to make that choice. But then again, what if the devil is sitting there whispering in their ear saying, you're screwed.
Yeah.
You're never going to learn, which keeps them in that perpetual cycle.
Right.
And this is something I have struggled with, especially over the last year, bringing the devil into these things, because I was someone who firmly wrote that stuff off before, because I also thought it was an instrument for fear. But then over that last year, I've taken that step back and said, maybe I need to consider all angles of this. Maybe there's a way to say, maybe there is some influence here, but I don't have to fall prey to that. And I don't have to be scared of it, but I can still acknowledge it. But I can say, all right, let's tango. Let's do this. Put them up. Give me your best shot. I'm going to grow, and I'm going to beat you by being the best person that I can be.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a few things that popped in my head. Did you have something before
No,
I go
I
through them?
love that.
I want to I have a couple things, and then I want to throw it to her because there's something I think she'll be interested to talk about here in a second. So first off, I want to talk about the devil, and I want to talk about the devil's role in our universe. And so what I want to talk about is how I think a lot of people have a misunderstood view of what the devil is. So for those that haven't read the Screw Tape Letters, phenomenal book, C.S. Lewis does an amazing job depicting the way the devil
You say
actually.
C.S. Lewis?
C.S. Lewis, yeah.
The dude who did The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. He has a lot of phenomenal writings.
Yeah. One of
Yeah.
the Screw Tape Letters is about the devil's perspective.
Yeah.
And the story of like people's lives from his perspective. It's super interesting.
It's very interesting.
Especially
book,
the
very well
audiobook.
written.
The audiobook is
Audiobook's really
like
good.
fascinating.
But it's basically so C.S. Lewis writes from the devil's perspective, showing, hey, here's how the devil actually operates and works. And the devil's goal, one of the ultimate ways the devil can win, first off, is convincing you he doesn't exist. Because then he's already won. He knows he knows that you're not on the defensive. You don't have to watch out. To your point, you were like, hey, well, maybe I can beat you. Maybe I can pay attention to this. Maybe I can, keep in the forefront of mind, be made aware. That's what we need to be. We need to be recognizing it is a threat, be prepared against the threat, right? So a lot of times he wins by convincing people he doesn't even exist. The next way that he wins is by taking something that God created and not completely changing it where it's obvious, just slightly perverting it. Just perverting it enough to where now it's actually people are following him instead of God. As an example, we have in the Old Testament hundreds of warnings about idols, about worshiping other idols. And so one of the things that's a fear of mine that I try and watch out for is, am I making something an idol? Just as an example, like for me, fitness is really important. I try not to make it an idol though. I don't want to go to the gym every day, spend all my time, energy, effort focused on fitness, because I think at that point it becomes unhealthy. And I think that's a slight perversion where it's like, okay, I think I'm taking care of myself. I think I'm doing the right thing. It's now become an idol. I am now worshiping this thing, which is my physical body, and the devil is now winning. It's just a slight perversion there. So I now want to bring that to this topic, right? And for all the listeners, just keep, we're this is just AJ's perspective, right? It's just my opinion, all right? But I do think that when you take, just as an example, like I used fitness as an example, we take astrology. And if it gets to the point where you are now constantly fixated on your stars, I forget how you worded it, but basically when you were born, your report card
Chart.
is how your chart. I'm
Your
sorry,
chart.
your report card's not the right word.
Your report card.
Your chart. If you're so fixated, you spend your whole life fixated on this chart, where it has now almost become your God, your thing that you spend all your time, energy, and effort on, and it consumes you, it's become an idol. And I think at that point, that's a way in which the devil wins. It gets to the point where all you're so fixated on it, you forget to love others, right? You're so fixed on your own chart, you're really just fixated on yourself. If it gets to that point,
And that
right?
can be with anything, even.
But you can be with
sports.
anything. Yeah, we talked in another episode recently about how like that what I just described can happen in like hundreds and hundreds of other scenarios, right? So I say it to say I think that is one example where the devil can win in this environment that we're talking about right now, is perverting it that way, where it becomes like an idol, right? I think just another thing to watch out for, to have have your fist ready, is, are you trying to become your own God by predicting your own future and taking your own control over things? Are you fixated on reading things in a way where you think now you have control, and you're taking that away from God, who ultimately does have the true control and the true power?
Yeah, but
Does that make sense?
Free will. Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. There's free will, but am I trying to become like almost like a magician, where I'm taking control and trying to predict my future through these stars, and almost treating them like a god? Because that's probably not the way it's intended to be
You're
used.
giving the control to. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, you're giving
Okay.
it away.
Got it.
And like based on what he said, that's not the intent of them. But based on my conversations with others, it has been treated that way
Yeah,
by
it
some.
can be abused. Is
It can be
really what
abused.
Yeah.
So it almost becomes like a god to some people.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you got to keep your, you got to be
That's with
recognizing that
everything,
could
too.
happen.
I mean, you can even you
Absolutely.
can do it with even God himself, as you can abuse that and have it perverted. Yeah.
So I think it's foolish to not say, hey, this, in all areas, there's an opportunity for the devil to pervert it in a way where it could be, sinful, wrong. He's taking, control of you. I think in all things that's possible. And because I believe that in this scenario, I think it's possible too.
I think you're also cautious and overall as a person. So you're more you're more careful about what you invest your time in because you're very
Yeah.
cautious. I'm the opposite. I don't
Well,
know
yeah.
what
Well, I think
you.
we have to. I think it's wise to be a little cautious.
Yeah.
So that's anything that sparks in your mind on that before I go on to the next thing.
Will you remember?
Yeah, I wrote it
You wrote
down.
it down.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, where do you think the healthy middle ground would be then?
Okay.
Because if I'm understanding correctly, the perversion component could be to make it the focal point of your life. Maybe fixate's even just too weak of a word, but just to become overly obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And because look, one of the things with the chart, I think it's incomplete. Because if you look at history, at least from what we know of modern recorded history, because who's to say what came before what was written or whatnot? But in our modern times, Uranus was discovered in the 1700s, Neptune in the 1800s, and Pluto in the 1900s. I believe it was 1930 for Pluto. Astrology was taking place before that, but it was really what you could only see with the naked eye. So those other bodies weren't taken into consideration at the time because they weren't seen. So like the full picture still isn't there. At least that's my belief, that there's probably so much that's still missing from the equation. So to treat it as if it is, do I dare say the way, or the absolute truth is foolish, because it's not a perfect system. It's incomplete. I don't believe we have the full picture of it yet. So to act like we do is foolish, because what if one of those missing components shifts everything and really flips that prediction on its head? And you put too much stock into this because this is the way it is. This is exactly what the book said. This is what I learned. So
Yeah.
I think to answer your question, like the middle ground, like where do we figure that out? I think it's you said it's incomplete. It's taking other things in whether it's your religious beliefs or life, like logic, what's going on in my life, and using those to also aid your knowledge and your decisions. So not just using one thing to guide yourself, but kind of pulling in other things too and saying, well, what makes the most sense? Are these all complementing each other or something out of place? And kind of figuring out that way. What do you think?
I like that.
Yeah.
I think so. This is actually interesting. This is where I was going to go next, was the middle ground, or I should say, how do we kind of merge the two, or how do we make sense of this? So you said this really well earlier, but the idea is that there's a difference between a belief and a fact. And to recognize just that, I think takes humility. To recognize, okay, I believe this doesn't mean it's actually a fact. And I need to be humble enough to accept, like, maybe there are pieces missing. Maybe there are things I don't know yet. And, in our podcast, we try really hard to have conversations based on that, we may believe this doesn't mean it's necessarily a fact. It's just what we believe based on our own convictions at this time. And we need to be humble and recognize maybe there's more to the story and more to the information. So I say that to say, I don't think there's anything wrong with people having a belief that because of their chart, maybe that is influenced the way in which they are as a person to some extent. I think that where it gets based on this, is just my opinion once again. I think the problem is when it gets too far past that, where, like you said, where people are maybe blaming that chart for their life, their outcome, their situation. Once again, I think that's a way in which the devil wins, or where it becomes this fixation where it's all they can think, all they can talk about is their charter, is there how the stars maybe were aligned when they were born. I think once again, if that's a fixation to the point where it consumes you as a person, I think that's too far in that direction. I don't think there's anything wrong with being interested, or maybe like taking it as a piece, to her point, a piece of evidence in your beliefs. It's a piece of, maybe your decision making. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
How do you find the middle ground?
I think the middle ground is, if you want to, research it, take it as a piece of evidence,
Okay.
take into consideration. I think that's the middle ground. I think going past that, or to maybe it consumes you, it almost becomes a god to you, or maybe it becomes like something where you're using it as an excuse. I think those are all indicators. Okay, that's past the middle ground. You've now taken it too far.
Yeah. And there's other examples of that too. Like even in the Christian faith, where sometimes you only use New Testament to make your decisions and how you treat other people. It's like, well, there's so much more. Like let's just say, like, you use like 2 verses about how, like, and you use it to outcast someone from your faith. There's
Mhm.
hundreds of verses about how the faith is about inclusion, the Christian faith, about how showing love and respect and kindness, not saying you were at church, you can't come back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's so much, I think, like taking into accountability all the pieces of it. And logically, like if we look at God, essentially like just the Christian faith, look at Christ. Christ was the opposite of that. Christ sat with tax collectors, which we hate tax collectors even just to this day.
Do that.
And so, tax collectors, he sat with prostitutes, he sat with everybody. He never said, well, no, I'm just sitting with them for today, and tomorrow I'm gonna say you can't come back. That's not how it works. But we take those two, we're like, oh, you can't come to church wearing that, or you can't come to church and talk like that. No, that's not how it works. It's like about an inclusion, about including other things, not just these two verses, but also how did Christ live
Mm.
his life, So that's kind of like the different example. It's obviously not astrology. It's talking about faith, but it's applicable in all areas of life. Is
Mm.
pulling in different aspects of things and saying what makes the most sense across the board.
Mhm.
So, Delaney, I want to ask you this question, then AJ, you can jump into if you want. For the listeners right now, a lot of them have been massively turned off to religion,
Mm,
either just by what they've seen out there in the world or by their own personal experience with, I mean, the word I've heard a lot from people is religious trauma
yeah.
and, what's been inflicted on them from a young age and then breaking away from that. So, my
Mhm,
question for you is, where do you find that middle ground, or where do you think the middle ground can be
mhm,
to find a more complete spiritual picture of beliefs
mhm.
by still investigating and not experimenting, but exploring the more
Yeah.
metaphysical realm
Mhm.
and also incorporating religion? Where do you feel that middle ground could be?
That's a very good question. So I actually found I hate the word religion to be clear, but I realize that's the best way to describe it. But I found religion, I guess, by religious trauma is for a long time I hated religion. I was like, this isn't for me. And after arguing it for so long, I realized that I was arguing against a belief system that really wasn't representing what the original belief system was. And so really delving into the roots of an issue. Does that make sense? So
Mhm.
we look at kind of the fruits of a lot of religious trauma is all of this abuse that's happening within religion, within churches. But if you go to the root of what the religion was, you'll find a lot of good in that root. And so I do that a lot in other areas of life too, is that might be a bad fruit, but let's go to the actual root and see what that's about. And if that root is bad, then we pluck it out. But if the root's not bad, we keep it. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And so when I delved into religion, I found I didn't like going to church. I still don't like going to church. I don't like the organization that is religion, which is why I had trouble with the word religion. I even have trouble with the word Christianity because of a lot of the ways it's misused. But I have a lot of belief in love, kindness, acceptance, the fruit of the spirit that is the root of what I believe Christ's life was. And so that's where I found that root and I was like, okay, I identify with that. I like that. I also find that in Buddhism. And so I like that too. And so kind of finding the core of what it is and discarding the ugly that comes with it and saying, well, I'm not going to accept that. I'm not going to let them treat me like that. That doesn't mean that the actual root is the evil. I'm going to find the good in that root and I'm going to like build my own garden. Does
Mhm.
that make sense? Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
AJ, you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, I actually love the way you put that. I'm gonna piggyback on it a little bit. So, first off, to anyone who is listening, I mean, I'm actually really excited to talk about this subject. For everyone that's listening, if there was someone of a religion that hurt you, especially Christianity, I want to take accountability and apologize on their behalf. And I want to say that if you were, this is just a kind of like a metaphor I give on this subject, but if you were walking through the airport, they got pianos sometimes in the airport, and you heard somebody attempting to play, Beethoven, and they were absolutely just destroying the song. Like it was horrible, worst thing you've ever heard. Do you blame Beethoven or do you blame them? Right? You don't blame the person that's butchering the authentic version. I'm sorry, you blame the person that's butchering it. You don't blame the person who actually authentically did it, right? So in that same way, I don't think you don't judge Christianity based on the people that are trying to enact it out. You base it on Christ, right? And so to her point, get to the root of it. How did Christ live his life? What did he teach? Okay. don't we're all human beings, we're all sinners, we're all going to fall short of the glory of God. We're unfortunately sinful human beings that are, captive by our human nature, and we battle it every day. I make mistakes every day. I can promise you, I call myself a Christian. Every day I make mistakes and I have to take ownership and apologize about things. I've apologized to my wife like a million times in the last week, I'm sure.
Sorry.
It's just part of it. I say that to say, if someone hurts you, I am sorry. That's not acceptable. And I'm not going to ever say it is. I would just say I wouldn't judge Christianity based on that. I would judge it based on Christ. And how did Christ live? How did he say we're supposed to treat others?
And also, when people ask me if I'm religious, I almost always say I'm a believer. I'm not religious
Mm.
because I don't like organized religion for that reason. And I don't want to ever say, "Oh, I'm a Christian," and someone say, "Well, I went to a Christian church and they taught me this, or they treated me like this." I don't want any part of that. And so, for me to say I'm a Christian, for me, almost feels against what I believe. It almost feels like I'm. Maybe I shouldn't say it quite that strongly, but almost feels like it's sacrilegious to me. I'm just like, I don't identify with hate. I don't like that. And so really saying, well, I'm a believer, meaning I believe in kindness, I believe in love, I believe in peace, patience, all of the fruits. And so I believe in that. So if you see that in me, then that's what I'm wanting. If you don't see that in me, then of course that's what I need to uproot. That's the weed I gotta pluck so I can build a pretty garden or plant a
Yeah.
pretty garden.
I had a mentor say one time, he said, a Christian's greatest enemy will always be other Christians because we do such a bad job portraying Christ when we know we're
Yeah.
supposed to. And he told me, when people ask me if I'm a Christian, I just say, I'm trying to be a better disciple of Jesus every day.
Mm.
He said, that's my answer. I'm just trying to be a better disciple every day.
The book Finding Jesus by Herb Montgomery is about that specifically, and how he was an evangelical preacher, and he was like, there is no Christ here, and I cannot do that. That's what he did for a living. So he's like, I cannot do this with my life because
Mm.
there's no Christ here. And then his book is about how he found what he believes is to be like the way, and it's just fascinating to see him from the super conservative evangelical, like very very conservative religion, to actually let me tear this down and find the root and see where the good truly is in this world. So very interesting book.
Need to read it.
Yeah, I need to read it too.
Yeah.
It's really good.
So, AJ, I'm going to turn to you for this one. And then Delaney, definitely want to get your response.
Do it.
Okay.
Hey,
If you could ask God one question about the stars, the universe, or the soul's journey, what would you ask?
Ooh.
So, I mean, I am really curious now that we've talked about it more. I'm so curious what impact the stars make in our lives. I am genuinely curious. And so I would just ask God, like, hey, what is your intent and purpose, or was your intent and purpose with this? If I do get to come before God one day, I'd be really curious to know that. And I'd be if the gospel and the stars theory, if that's true, I'd be really curious to hear that music.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, I guess those would be my two things.
Sorry, Delaney, before I ask you that question, mind if I ask you one thing about what you just said, AJ?
Yeah, go for it.
You use the word if.
Mhm.
If you find yourself standing in front of God.
Mm.
Why'd you use the word if?
So I think personally, humility is a critical aspect as a human being, just in general. I think humility is a fruit that will benefit us human beings drastically in our lives. I try really, 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 really hard to embody that as much as I can. I think one area, and this is going to trigger a lot of Christians, actually. I think one area where a lot of Christians make a mistake is they get arrogant and they say things like, "Oh, I'm a Christian, I'm going to heaven." And I think that that's quite arrogant to say that. I think it's okay to say I'm a Christ follower. I think it's okay to say, "Hey, I'm just trying to love God, love others more every day." And I hope I go before God one day. I hope I hope that I, without being arrogant, I hope I get to have that experience. I do think that it can be arrogant to say like, "Oh, I'm definitely going to heaven." So yeah, I say I try and be humble and say, hey, I hope that God honors me with that. I hope that's an incredible gift I get to have, is I get to go to heaven, experience eternity with God one day. And in Scripture, a scary thing to think about, this is a whole nother conversation, is we know that God does use people for reasons where He uses people who are doing evil, knowing that they're not going to spend eternity with Him. We look at people like Pharaoh as an example. God talks in the Old Testament during the book of Exodus about how He hardened Pharaoh's heart, and that God used him as a tool, though. It was a tool to glorify God in the end. And then you look at Joseph, Joseph in the robe of many colors. Same situation. It specifically says that whenever Joseph is finally put in his leadership role as the second command, it says Joseph tells his brothers who did evil to him, he says, what you did, you thought was for evil, but God had good intentions for that. And so God used the evil the brothers did Joseph for good things, ended up saving millions of lives. So anyways, I say that to say, I hope I'm not just a tool God's using that's not going to get to experience eternity with him.
You want me to?
But I do think it's arrogant if I'm like, oh, I know for sure I'm saved. So I try not to have that mentality.
I mean, look, man, I'm just blown away right now. I think hearing you speak that way is truly humbling. And not to toot my own horn right now, but it makes me happy that I reached out to you guys.
Aw.
Because I see that I was shutting myself off to something for a very long time. I mean, I've been embarking on this for, like I said, the last year or so, just having these conversations and exploring the possibilities of what if. But I'm just like, man, I was missing out on so much by being so rigid and thinking that anyone who associated themselves with that word, Christianity, or wore it as that badge of honor, that I was shutting myself off to just something amazing and viewing that as a one size fits all. that sock
sock.
on everyone. Anyone who wears that is all the same.
Yeah.
That one word there, if. Like when you said if, I was just like, what? What? If you're saying, like, why not when? Because in my mind, it was always when. Whenever anyone who associated with that, it was, I'm going to stand in front of God. Yes, I may be judged for that, or that I shall have done, but I will stand in front of God. And to hear just the conviction that you speak with, and in quoting scripture, and to say if, I'm like, man, I had this so wrong. And yeah, I'm going to be kind to myself and not beat up on myself too much for being like, you were an idiot. But I forgive myself for thinking that way. But just that moment of, wow, I thought I was open-minded before, but I wasn't as open-minded as I thought I was. So just even hearing you say that word if, I'm like, where am I still so closed-minded and not seeing it yet? And all it took were those two letters. So, I mean, thank you for that. And so, Delaney, I want to get your response on this, but I also just want to shift to you for this one.
Okay.
I guess I had this picture in my mind of what a Christian couple would look like. I don't think I went to the full side of every Christian couple was going to be like this, but especially for the way that AJ spoke during the podcast, not just on the clip, but so from the quoting the scripture and all of that, and just still with the conviction, it was, this is what the wife of this man would look like. It would be someone who didn't think for themselves. And I'm almost ashamed to say that, but of course, I think we all have our own bias and prejudice in the way that we see things.
Yes.
Absolutely.
100%.
Even watching that episode, it started to unravel for me, just seeing that, those moments when you did say, well, I don't agree with that. Because it was always, oh, no, the wife will always step in line and always agree and be the subservient one to her husband. Like that's the way that I saw that Christian dynamic. To then also hear you talk about your views and, the things that we, see in line with each other.
Yeah.
And just, I'm like, I was an idiot to think that this is the way it would always be. So thank you to both of you for helping open my eyes and to reinforce this little journey that I've been on to reach outside of my little, sheltered bubble and closed-minded bubble, and to show me that there's so much more out there in the world than just the stupid, rigid way that I viewed it. So thank you guys for that. And
man,
it didn't take much.
Man, no, thank you for all that. Those are some incredibly there's some of the nicest things I think someone said about us. I really appreciate
It's
it.
encouraging too, because often when I don't share his opinion, because you're right, traditional Christianity, like the viewpoint is the wife's subservient. I think is the word used,
Mhm.
and so sometimes I'm like, should I be agreeing with him? Then I'm like, no, I'm not going to. I'm not going to. So it's good to have encouragement. That's something that's admirable. So that's good.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
I just want to give kudos to you actually, because as we've gone throughout this episode today, I feel like I've gotten to know you a little bit better. And you come across someone who's genuinely open-minded and genuinely, I think you have a lot of humility in your heart, which is incredibly admirable. And I'm sure your listeners pick that up way, because I'm sure that comes across. And I like to think that because you are that way speaking to these people, maybe they pick that up as well, which I think is incredible that you get to make that impact on others. So I just wanted to commend you, because I think that the way that you are going through life open-minded, trying to be humble and seek the truth, I think is awesome and admirable. And I think it impacts others in a great way. So
Thank you.
Oh.
Then again, I fooled you all. I'm sorry.
he does the voices really well.
The truth is out. Okay. Anyways, Delaney, same question to you. What's the one question that you would have for God? I like the way I have it worded here.
Yeah.
If it was about the stars, the universe, or the soul's journey.
The soul's journey. I think I would ask him how much the soul's journey is attached to the physical body, because I've always wondered that. I never really had an answer. And so I would ask that. And I would ask it very broadly, so that, because, they always say when you talk with a higher power that you have to be very specific, because otherwise they'll give you the wrong answer. They'll give you like a very specific answer if you're too specific in this area. So ask it very broadly so he would give me a lot of information about how the soul is connected to the body, the physical body.
I didn't see that one coming. That's cool.
I didn't either. That was good. No, that was good.
So, where can everyone find you guys?
Yeah, so our main platform is YouTube, as you saw. That's where we prioritize. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, what else?
Instagram.
Yeah.
I think we have a TikTok.
Yeah, we do TikTok a little bit. Yeah, but mostly our number one is YouTube. That's where all of our shorts, all of our long episodes and everything are. We do Instagram a little bit.
I don't know our handle. Is it thus?
I sent it to him so he can have it, but all of our handles are the same. It's soul_lab_podcast.
I'm so glad you know. I don't have anything to do
I
with
got
it.
lucky. So whenever we were going to make all of our socials, luckily all of those were free.
Yeah.
There weren't many soul labs
Say it-
actually,
say
now
it-
that I think about
Say
it.
it again.
It's soul_lab_podcast
Okay.
for pretty much everything.
Dope.
Yeah, just pops right up.
I forgot one thing. I want to
Yeah.
play one last game with you guys.
Yes.
yeah.
So, this is called the Saturn game. And
Ooh.
Saturn in astrology is the Lord of Karma, Lord of Time. It's a planet of authority and, the lessons. So, in this little baggie, I have 4 periods of time.
Okay.
And I'm going to pull one out for each of you. And then I'll share the question with you.
Okay.
So I do like to maintain the integrity of the game, but due to time, since there's both of you guys, I usually do 3 polls, but I'm just going to do 2. So you see, I'm taking my hand out.
Yeah.
Just because I don't want to rig the game.
Okay.
So, Delaney, how have you grown in the last day?
Oh my. So I went to therapy today, because every therapist needs a therapist. And I talked for an hour straight, my poor therapist, and I learned a lot about myself. I think that's how I've grown. I've really kind of learned about me today. Yeah.
All right. AJ, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm going to pull a different one out for you.
I'm nervous. It's going to be like, what is your social?
The one, a hand pull, and then
Yeah.
I'll pull out on the last one. So you guys see I'm maintaining the integrity of the game.
Yeah.
All right, AJ, how have you grown in the last week? And what's your social security number?
In the last week. Yeah, I would say this is really cool. So I sit on the board of a nonprofit. I'm really passionate about this nonprofit. It's called Special Kids, and it helps kids with special needs get the therapy and treatment they need, even when the families can't afford it. Awesome nonprofit. In the last week, I got put in some leadership roles. I'm doing some things with Special Kids. We're actually expanding right now to Chattanooga, because they started in another city. And what's helped me grow in this week is realizing, so the thing that I got put in charge of has required me to network with a lot of people that are entrepreneurs in the area. And I'm realizing now how important it is to talk with people about the positive impact they can make in the world. Because as I'm talking with these people, I'm realizing these people are very like maybe like worldly successful. I call it worldly successful. Like they're financially successful, they have the car and the house, all that fun stuff, but they're not really making a positive impact. And then I talk with them, and then they realize they're like, "Oh my goodness, like I can do this. I can make a positive impact in the world." I'm like, "Yeah." So for what's changed for me is realizing how important it is to just like help empower others, help them realize their full potential, help them realize like they can make a difference in the world, because a lot of people don't think they can, and they can. So that was a long-winded way to answer and say what I learned this week is like empower others and help them learn that they can make a difference.
Mhm.
So yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if thank you was enough for coming on, but thank you
Oh,
guys. Like this has
Yeah.
been an amazing conversation. Seriously, thank you. I have grown so much in the last hour and a half speaking with you guys. I know the question
yes.
wasn't to me, but I'm going to take it upon myself.
Please do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I lost a lot of time being
Mhm.
stuck in that mindset.
Hmm.
So thank you. Thank you for helping shake me. And maybe I'll start looking at things differently, because do either of you play chess?
Love chess.
I've tried. I can't figure it out. But he's
So when I started playing chess, I started to look at the world differently.
Hmm.
When I would be out in the world, I would almost be viewing the chess pieces making their moves.
Mhm.
And it helped me look at things differently. Not to kind of fully piggyback on astrology, but it did the same thing. And when I started to learn astrology, I started to look at the world differently because of those interactions, just like the chess pieces and the moves that they were making.
Mm.
But just from this conversation and the dynamic with you guys, like I said before, and especially those two letters, I and F, or I and F,
Mhm.
I feel like I'm going to be listening more intently in any given interaction that I have, and just thinking, and what am I missing?
Mm.
Thank you. I know that may not seem like a lot, but I think it's those little things and those little shifts that make the biggest difference for all of us.
Yeah.
And I'm going to remember this day is that day when I will not sit here and say that I'm not going to fall back and have
Mhm.
those moments where I fall back into my old patterns. But this was that conversation where I'm like, damn, I was a fool.
Hmm.
I was so stupid and closed off, and hopefully now I can maintain that openness. So thank you for helping me grow in the last hour and a half. I hope by extension that everyone listening, can just ask yourself, where are you being closed off?
Mm.
Where are you keeping those blinders on because of any preconceived notions or ideas that you may have? And open your eyes. It's okay. What's the worst thing that happens? You see that you were right.
Mhm.
I think that there's more to learn from being wrong, though.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So just
Absolutely.
I
I like
love
that.
that.
you.
I'm gonna use that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I love that.
Yeah.
Delaney, I know I have like sung the individual praises as much, and I apologize for that. And but there's
I'm
just
just
one
alive
of
after all. So
Yeah, you're supposed to be silent
I'm
anyways.
sorry, my bad.
and I want to acknowledge you, but there was something else that AJ just said that I'm like, I have to address it. It was
Yeah.
so brilliant. The thing you said about Beethoven,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
That was good.
is that original?
No, I definitely heard that somewhere. I
Okay.
can't tell you where. I heard it. Where was
From me.
it?
No, you're not.
Yeah, I wish I could take credit. I'm almost
Yeah.
positive a friend or a mentor, someone made that comment one day.
Mhm.
Because
Pretty funny.
I too have complained about Christians like hurting me.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I deconstructed when I was younger. And someone somewhere told me, they're like, do you blame the random person trying to play Beethoven when they butcher it, or do you blame Beethoven? And I was like, that makes so much sense to me.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's just stuck with me.
I think where this will also personally connect with everyone who's listening beyond just, by the way, helping deconstruct the way that I saw Christianity or just any religion for that matter. One of the common things with astrology is, oh my God, I'm never going to date a Taurus because I dated this one Taurus and he was the worst.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe this isn't the same as Beethoven, but I was never mind. Okay, it's not a one size fits all. I think that's just the overall message for today. So
Yeah.
thank you guys so much for coming on, and everyone go check out Soul Lab. Yeah, I mean, come on, you guys have gotten to know them over the last little while, so I think what you see is what you get, unless you guys are some crazy serial killers or something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're doing a great job
Why
hiding it.
not?
Sorry, I've been watching Dexter a lot lately.
Yeah.
So thank you guys.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Thanks for having us on. It's been a blast.
Yeah.
And I always like to finish every episode by saying, yay. You guys can say it if you want. You don't have to, but yay.
Just yay.
Yeah.
You want to do it on 3,
1,
2,
3.
3. Yay. What if that's not a thing? He just convinced us to just say yay.
Yay.
I guess you'll have to find
Yeah.
out. No, it's okay. You can check every other episode finishes with yay.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Wait, does that conclude it?
Yay.
Okay. Yay.
Fellow time travelers, your journey through time awaits you. Just want to thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. And if you're interested in discovering who, when, and where you have been throughout time, and you'd like to book a session with me, just go ahead and send me a message on Instagram at The Past Life Regressionist, or you can reach me through my website, yourpastliferegressionist.com.